I received a group family text 3 days before Thanksgiving, with the full dinner schedule, seating chart, and menu. Everyone's name was listed except mine. My mother, Patricia, had organized the entire event at my childhood home. My sister, Emma, her husband, Greg, my younger brother, Tyler, and even distant cousins were invited. When I texted asking if there'd been a mistake, Patricia responded publicly in the group chat. "No mistake. You're not welcome this year. You know what you did." I had no idea what she was talking about. The family chat went silent. I stared at my phone screen for 20 minutes straight, reading and rereading that message. "You know what you did." The words burned into my brain like a brand. I ran through the past 6 months in my head, trying to figure out what I could have possibly done to deserve this. I'd been busy with the restaurant, sure, but I called Mom every Sunday. I sent flowers on her birthday. I even drove her to 2 doctor's appointments when Emma was out of town. Nothing made sense. My chest felt tight as I scrolled through the family group chat one more time. There was Tyler's girlfriend asking what dish she should bring. There was my cousin Amanda confirming she'd arrive by 2 in the afternoon. There was Emma posting a photo of the centerpiece she'd bought. Everyone was acting like this was completely normal. Like I hadn't just been publicly humiliated and cast out of my own family. I needed answers. I called Emma directly. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up. "What do you want, Chandler?" Her voice was cold, clipped. This wasn't the sister I'd grown up with. The one who used to call me crying about bad dates and job interviews gone wrong. "Emma, what's going on? What is Mom talking about? Are you seriously going to play dumb right now?" "I'm not playing anything. I genuinely don't know what she's talking about." Emma let out a harsh laugh. "After what you did to Mom, you're lucky she's even speaking to you at all. Honestly, I think she's being too nice. I would have cut you off completely." My hand tightened around the phone. "What did I supposedly do?" "You stole $30,000 from her retirement account to fund that restaurant of yours. Don't act like you don't remember." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, catching myself against the kitchen counter of my apartment. That's insane. I never took a dime from Mom. I funded Harvest Table through a small business loan and my own savings. 10 years of working as a sous chef, Emma. You know that. Right. And I suppose Mom just made up the bank statement showing the transfer? Stop lying, Chandler. We've all seen the proof. What proof? What bank statement? The one that shows a $30,000 withdrawal from her account 8 months ago with a note that says, "Transfer to Chandler, restaurant investment." Mom showed all of us. The date matches exactly when you opened Harvest Table. My mind raced. 8 months ago. That was my opening week. I'd been running on 3 hours of sleep a night, dealing with supplier issues, training staff, managing 1,000 details at once. "Emma, I swear on everything I have, I never received any money from Mom. In fact, do you remember 2 years ago when I asked her for a small loan to help with the business plan? She said no. She called my dream foolish and said it was destined to fail." There was a long pause. For a moment I thought maybe I'd gotten through to her. "That's exactly what a con artist would say," Emma finally replied. "You're manipulative, Chandler. You always have been. I can't believe I didn't see it before. You can't be serious. Don't call me again. And don't show up on Thanksgiving. If you do, we're calling the police." She hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dead silence. My sister thought I was a thief. My mother had convinced the entire family I'd stolen from her, and I had no idea how to prove my innocence. But I had to try. 20 minutes later, I was driving to my mother's house in the suburb where I'd grown up. The November afternoon was gray and cold, the kind of weather that makes everything look drained of color. Bare trees lined the streets, dead leaves scattered across lawns. I pulled into the driveway of the modest 2-story house, where I'd spent my childhood, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I rang the doorbell. Through the frosted glass panel, I could see movement. Then Patricia's silhouette appeared. She opened the door but kept the screen door locked between us. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp, nothing like the warm tone I'd grown up hearing. "Mom, please, can we talk about this? I don't understand what's happening." You understand perfectly well. You stole from me, Chandler. You betrayed my trust. I didn't steal anything. I never touched your money. Can you show me this bank statement Emma mentioned? Patricia disappeared for a moment, then returned with a piece of paper. She held it up to the screen door. I squinted at it. Sure enough, it showed her account number, a withdrawal of $30,000, and a note in the memo line. Transfer to Chandler, restaurant investment. The date was from 8 months ago. Mom, I never received this money. I can show you my bank records. I can prove that every dollar for the restaurant came from my business loan and my savings. You're a liar. Her eyes were hard, unfamiliar. You took my retirement money, and then you had the nerve to pretend everything was fine, calling me every Sunday like you cared. It was all an act. It wasn't an act. I love you. I would never steal from you. Get off my property, Chandler. You're not welcome here. You're not welcome at Thanksgiving. You're not welcome in this family until you return what you took and apologize for what you've done. But I didn't take anything. You're a manipulative con artist, just like your father was. She said it with such venom that I actually took a step back. My father had died when I was 12. He'd been a good man, a plumber who worked hard and loved his family. Comparing me to him should have been a compliment, but the way she said it made it sound like the worst insult imaginable. Mom, please. She slammed the inner door shut. I heard the deadbolt click into place. I stood on the porch for a long moment, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath me. As I walked back to my car, I glanced up at the house. In an upstairs window, I saw Tyler watching me. Our eyes met for a second. Then he shook his head slowly, his expression full of disgust, and closed the curtain. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Not only was I excluded from Thanksgiving, but my entire family believed I was a thief. My reputation was destroyed, and I had no idea how to fix it. By the time I got back to Harvest Table, it was almost 4 in the afternoon. The lunch rush was over, and the restaurant was in that quiet lull before dinner prep started. I went straight to my office, a cramped room in the back filled with invoices, inventory lists, and the constant hum of the refrigeration units on the other side of the wall. Jessica, my restaurant manager, knocked on the open door. She was 35, efficient, and had been with me since opening day. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Family stuff, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's complicated. She nodded, not pushing for details. Well, just so you know, a health inspector stopped by while you were gone. Unscheduled visit. My head snapped up. What? We were just inspected 2 months ago. I know. I thought it was weird too. Everything passed, though. He said it was a random check, something about new procedures. But the timing felt off. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Thanks for letting me know. After she left, I pulled up my online banking. I needed to verify what I already knew, that I'd never received $30,000 from my mother. My business account showed the small business loan deposit from 8 months ago, $53,000. Every penny accounted for in the restaurant build-out, equipment purchases, initial inventory, and operating capital. Then I remembered something. Years ago, when Mom had knee surgery and couldn't get around easily, she'd added me as an authorized user on her bank account so I could pay her bills and handle errands. That was 6 years ago, and I'd never been removed from the account. I'd never used the access after she recovered, but technically, I could still view her statements. I logged into her bank's website using the credentials I'd set up for her back then. My heart pounded as the page loaded. There it was, her savings account, but something was wrong. The balance was lower than it should have been, much lower. Mom had always been frugal, always saved diligently. But according to this statement, she'd been making unusual transfers over the past year. I started scrolling through the transaction history. $5,000 transferred out in March, $3,000 in April, $2,200 in May. The pattern continued, month after month. Small enough amounts that they might not trigger immediate alarm, but they added up. By my count, $47,000 had been moved out of her account over the past 14 months. But here was the critical thing. The $30,000 withdrawal she'd accused me of taking? It never happened. That money was still in her account. The bank statement she'd shown me was fake. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Someone had fabricated that document. But who? And why? Before I could dig deeper, my phone buzzed. It was an email from a legal office I didn't recognize. I opened it with a growing sense of dread. Notice of restraining order hearing. I read through the document twice, unable to believe what I was seeing. Patricia had filed for a restraining order against me, claiming I'd shown up at her house earlier today, threatened her, and demanded money. The hearing was scheduled for 5 days from now, the day after Thanksgiving. My hands were shaking as I called George, a family friend who'd become a lawyer. He'd been to Harvest Table a dozen times, always left generous tips, always said if I ever needed legal help to give him a call. "Chandler, slow down," George said after I'd frantically explained the situation. "Take a breath and tell me exactly what happened at your mother's house." I walked him through the conversation, how I'd stayed on the porch, how I'd never raised my voice, how she'd slammed the door in my face. "This is serious," George said. "Your mother has 2 witnesses listed who are willing to testify about your threatening behavior. Your sister Emma and her husband Greg. They both signed affidavits stating they heard you screaming obscenities at Patricia through the phone on multiple occasions. That never happened. Those calls never existed. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Do you have phone records? I can get them. Do that. We'll need every piece of evidence we can find. Chandler, I have to be honest with you. This situation looks bad. Your mother is elderly. She has multiple family members supporting her story, and you have a clear financial motive according to her version of events. A judge is going to take her claims seriously." After I hung up with George, I sat in my office feeling like the walls were closing in. This wasn't just about being excluded from Thanksgiving anymore. This was about my reputation, my freedom, possibly my entire future. Someone was systematically destroying my life, and I couldn't figure out who or why. Jessica knocked again. "Hey, I hate to bother you, but we've got a problem with the walk-in. Temperature's fluctuating. I've got a repair guy coming in the morning." "Thanks, Jessica. Can you handle it? I need to make some calls." "Of course." I spent the next 3 hours on the phone with my bank, gathering records and statements. I printed everything out, organized it into folders. I had proof that I'd never received that $30,000. But would it be enough to convince my family? Would it be enough to stop the restraining order? As I was leaving for the night, I noticed something strange. The back door to the kitchen, the employee entrance, had scratches around the lock. Fresh scratches, like someone had been trying to pick it or force it open. The cold feeling in my stomach got worse. Thanksgiving Day arrived with unexpected warmth, one of those strange November afternoons where the temperature climbed into the low 60s and the sun actually broke through the clouds. Under different circumstances, it would have been perfect weather for a family gathering. Instead, I was preparing for the busiest service night Harvest Table had ever seen. 53 reservations, every table booked. I'd spent the morning prepping in the kitchen with my small team, including Marcus, my sous chef. He'd been with me for 6 months, came highly recommended from a restaurant in Philadelphia. Talented guy, great palate, reliable, or so I'd thought. By 6 in the evening, the dining room was packed. The energy was perfect. Couples at intimate tables, families celebrating together, the murmur of conversation mixing with the gentle music from the speakers. This was what I'd dreamed of when I'd opened Harvest Table. A place where people gathered, where food brought joy, where I could build something meaningful. Then Patricia walked through the door. I was in the kitchen, plating a duck breast, when Jessica rushed in. Her face was pale. "Chandler, your mother's here." With like 12 people. No reservation. My hands froze over the plate. "What?" She just walked in and demanded a table. "She's got your whole family with her." I set down my tools and took off my apron. My heart was hammering as I walked toward the front. Through the kitchen door window, I could see them. Patricia, Emma, Greg, Tyler, and 8 others I recognized from family gatherings. Cousins, aunts, uncles. They were clustered around the host stand, and Patricia was talking loudly enough that nearby diners were turning to look. I pushed through the door into the dining room. Every eye seemed to turn toward me. The conversation at nearby tables died down. Patricia saw me and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who thought they were about to win something. Chandler, sweetheart, we need a table for 12. Family should get priority, don't you think? I kept my voice calm, professional. Mom, we're fully booked tonight. You need a reservation. Her smile widened. Are you seriously going to turn away your own mother on Thanksgiving? After everything I did for you? After I raised you, supported your dreams, sacrificed for you? People were definitely watching now. I could feel their attention like a physical weight. We have 53 reservations tonight, I said quietly. Every table is occupied. I'm sorry, but without a reservation, there's nothing I can do. Emma stepped forward. This is ridiculous, Chandler. You can squeeze us in somewhere. There's nowhere to squeeze. I'm running a business. Patricia's expression shifted. The fake sweetness vanished, replaced by something hard and cold. She turned to face the dining room, raising her voice so everyone could hear. I want everyone here to know what kind of person owns this restaurant. My son, Chandler, is a thief. He stole $30,000 from my retirement account. He took the money I'd been saving for my future, money I'd worked 40 years to accumulate, and he used it to open this place. And now he can't even give his elderly mother a table on Thanksgiving. The entire restaurant went silent, completely silent. I could hear the music playing, could hear the ventilation system, but no one was talking. Every single person was staring at us. That's not true, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Emma joined in. You're a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. I can't believe I ever looked up to you. Tyler pulled out his phone and started recording. I could see the red recording dot on the screen. He was filming this, clearly planning to post it online. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to explain, but then a loud crash came from the kitchen. Everyone's heads turned toward the sound. A moment later, Marcus stumbled through the door. He was drunk, completely, obviously intoxicated. His eyes were unfocused, his movements uncoordinated. I can't do this anymore, Marcus shouted. His words were slurred, but audible throughout the entire dining room. The guilt is killing me. I can't keep doing this. I stared at him in shock. Marcus, what are you talking about? She's been paying me. He pointed at Patricia with an unsteady hand. $500 a week for the past 2 months. She told me to sabotage the kitchen. Oversalt the dishes, overcook the steaks, throw out inventory, drive up your costs. She said she'd help me open my own restaurant once your business failed. She promised. The silence in the dining room somehow got even deeper. I couldn't breathe. My own sous chef had been sabotaging me for 2 months, and Patricia had orchestrated it. I looked at my mother. Her face had gone white. For a second, just a second, I saw something like panic in her eyes. Then she recovered. She was good at this, I realized. Good at pivoting. Good at manipulating. That's absurd, Patricia said, her voice shaking with what sounded like genuine distress. This man is clearly intoxicated. Chandler obviously put him up to this. He's trying to deflect from his own theft by creating a false accusation. How dare you, Chandler? How dare you try to frame me? I didn't, I started to say, but she cut me off. Everyone can see what's happening here. My son is so desperate to avoid taking responsibility for stealing from me that he's staging a scene with his employee. It's pathetic. Marcus was still standing there, swaying slightly. I'm not lying. She paid me. I have the texts. I have the Venmo transactions. But the damage was done. 3 customers near the front stood up, grabbing their coats. We don't want to eat at a restaurant with this much drama, one of them said loudly. They walked out, leaving their partially eaten meals on the table. Then another couple stood up. Then a family of 4. Within 5 minutes, 7 tables had emptied. Nearly a third of my customers. Gone. Just gone. Patricia looked around the dining room, then turned back to me. "You've made your choice, Chandler. You chose to humiliate your family in public. Now you'll face the consequences." She swept out of the restaurant, the rest of my family following her like loyal soldiers. Tyler was still filming as they left. I stood in the middle of my dining room, surrounded by remaining customers who were whispering to each other and sneaking glances at me. Jessica appeared at my side. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "Comp the meals for everyone who stays," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "And call a meeting with the staff. We need to figure out what Marcus has done and how bad it is." Marcus had disappeared back into the kitchen. When I went to find him, he was passed out in the dry storage area, reeking of whiskey. The rest of the night was a blur. We served the remaining customers, though the atmosphere was ruined. The energy that had been so perfect earlier was gone, replaced by awkward tension. People left quickly, without lingering over dessert. By the time we closed, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. Jessica pulled me aside. I checked the inventory. Marcus has been stealing, not just sabotaging. We're missing at least $3,000 worth of product. And I found evidence he's been reporting false health code violations. The unscheduled inspection the other day? He probably called that in. I sank into a chair. My sous chef had betrayed me. My mother had orchestrated it. And now the whole city would soon know, thanks to whatever Tyler posted online. I'd thought things couldn't get worse after being excluded from Thanksgiving. I'd been wrong. This was so much worse. I woke up the next morning to my phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. Text after text, notification after notification. My stomach knotted before I even looked at the screen. Tyler had posted the video. Of course he had. But it wasn't the full confrontation. He'd edited it carefully, cutting out Patricia's accusations about the theft and Marcus's confession. What remained was a 90-second clip of me refusing to seat my elderly mother, Patricia, looking distressed and hurt, and me standing there looking cold and heartless. The caption read, "When success makes you forget who raised you." My brother refused to serve our mom on Thanksgiving. 12,000 views. In less than 8 hours. I scrolled through the comments. They were brutal. People calling me ungrateful, heartless, cruel. Someone had already identified Harvest Table and posted the address. Others were threatening to leave bad reviews. Then I saw that Tyler had shared the video in several local community groups. The shares were multiplying. I dragged myself out of bed and checked my other social media accounts. The reviews had already started. 7 one-star reviews posted between midnight and 6 in the morning, spread across Yelp, Google, and TripAdvisor. I read them with growing horror. They described things that never happened. Food poisoning, disgusting kitchen conditions, finding bugs in the food, rude, dismissive service. One review claimed they'd gotten salmonella from the turkey dinner, even though Harvest Table doesn't serve turkey. Another described menu items we don't even have. The reviews were clearly fake, but the damage was real. Our overall rating had dropped. And in the restaurant business, ratings are everything. By noon, my phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. "They're here again," she said without preamble. "Health Department. Emergency inspection. They said they received multiple complaints overnight. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I threw on clothes and drove to the restaurant faster than I should have. When I arrived, 2 health inspectors were already in the kitchen, checking temperatures, examining storage areas, reviewing logs. I recognized one of them from our previous inspections. Her expression was grim. "Mr. Chandler, we need to show you something." She led me to the dry storage area. In the back corner, behind bags of flour, there were rodent droppings. Small dark pellets scattered across the floor. "That's impossible," I said. "We have professional pest control. They were just here 2 weeks ago. We've never had a rodent problem." "I'm documenting what I see," the inspector said. "We'll also need to check your pest control records." The other inspector called from the walk-in cooler. When we went to look, my heart sank. There, sitting on a shelf in plain sight, was a container of raw chicken, not sealed, not covered, just sitting there at room temperature. "Jessica," I called. She appeared immediately. "When did you last check the walk-in?" 30 minutes ago," Right before they arrived. I swear to you, Chandler, that chicken was not there. Everything was properly stored. I personally checked. The inspector was making notes. We're going to have to issue a conditional pass. You'll need a reinspection in 2 weeks. If you fail that, we'll have to temporarily close you down pending a full investigation. Someone is sabotaging us, I said. Someone planted that chicken, those rodent droppings. Someone is deliberately trying to destroy my business. The inspector's expression softened slightly. I understand you're frustrated, but I can only report what I observe. Get your house in order for the reinspection. I'd suggest installing security cameras if you think there's sabotage happening. After they left, I sat in my office with Jessica. The droppings and the chicken, I said. They weren't there this morning? Absolutely not. I did my opening checklist. Everything was clean. Everything was proper. Chandler, someone got in here between my check and when the inspectors arrived. That's a 30-minute window. I pulled up the reservation system. 3 cancellations had already come in. Within an hour, it was 7. By mid-afternoon, 13. People were canceling left and right, many of them leaving notes that they'd seen the reviews or heard about the health code issues. Then George called. We need to talk. The hearing got moved up. What? When? Today. 3 o'clock. The judge had a cancellation and wants to resolve this quickly. You need to get down to the courthouse now. I barely had time to grab my evidence folder before racing to the courthouse. George met me outside the courtroom, looking stressed. There's something else you need to know, he said. Your mother brought a new witness. Someone named Derek. The name hit me like cold water. Derek. My former business partner from 2 years ago. The man I'd planned to open a restaurant with until I discovered he was embezzling from our planning funds. I'd cut ties with him, started over on my own, and hadn't heard from him since. What's Derek doing here? I asked. He's testifying that you have a history of financial manipulation. The hearing was worse than I'd imagined. Patricia sat at the front with Emma and Greg. Derek sat behind them, looking confident and well-dressed in a suit I knew he couldn't afford 2 years ago. The judge was a woman in her early 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for being protective of elderly petitioners. George had warned me about her. Patricia testified first. She described how I'd shown up at her house, pounded on the door, screamed at her through the screen, called her terrible names, and demanded she give me more money. All lies. Complete lies. But she was convincing, her voice shaking, her hands trembling. Emma testified next. She claimed I'd called multiple times over the past month, each time becoming more aggressive and verbally abusive. She said I'd threatened to make Mom pay for not supporting my restaurant. Another lie. Greg corroborated Emma's story, adding details that made me sound dangerous and unstable. Then Derek took the stand. He described our failed business partnership, painting me as someone who'd tried to force him out by hiding money and manipulating accounts. He said I had a pattern of financial deception, and that Patricia was right to be afraid of me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout that every word was fabricated. But George had warned me to stay calm, to let the evidence speak. When it was my turn, I presented my phone records showing no calls to Patricia or Emma during the times they claimed. I showed my bank records proving I'd never received the $30,000. I explained that Derek was lying, that he'd been the one stealing during our partnership. But I could see it in the judge's face. She didn't believe me. Or maybe she just believed Patricia more. The judge granted a temporary restraining order. I had to stay 300 feet away from Patricia at all times. The order would remain in effect pending a full hearing in 30 days. As I walked out of the courtroom, I saw Derek and Patricia talking in the parking lot. They were standing close, their heads bent together. Then Derek pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Patricia. She took it with a small smile. They looked up and saw me watching. Patricia's smile widened. Derek just stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not quite triumph. Something else. Something that made my skin crawl. That's when it hit me. This wasn't random. This wasn't just my mother turning against me for some unknown reason. Derek was involved. Derek, who wanted to open his own restaurant. Derek, who I'd beaten to the punch by opening Harvest Table first. Derek, who now saw an opportunity to destroy me and take everything I'd built. I got in my car and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process everything. My family believed I was a thief. I had a restraining order against me, based on lies. My business was hemorrhaging customers and facing potential closure. My former business partner was conspiring with my mother. Everything I'd worked for was falling apart, and I still didn't understand the full picture of why. I didn't go back to the restaurant that night. I couldn't face it. Instead, I drove around the city for hours, trying to clear my head, trying to figure out my next move. By the time I got home, it was after midnight. I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, going through everything again. The fake bank statement. The mysterious transfers from Patricia's account. Derek's sudden involvement. Marcus's confession about the sabotage. The planted evidence during the health inspection. It all had to be connected, but I couldn't see how. Around 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I needed professional help. I found a private investigator online, a woman named Sharon who specialized in financial fraud and elder abuse cases. Her website showed an impressive resume. Former FBI Financial Crimes Unit, 20 years of experience, hundreds of successful cases. I sent her an email explaining my situation and asking if she could help. She responded within an hour, even at that absurd time of night. "I'm interested. Can you meet tomorrow at 10? Sharon's office was in a nondescript building downtown. She was in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. I spent 2 hours telling her everything, showing her every document I had. "This is complex," she said when I finished. "But I've seen similar patterns before. Give me 48 hours. I'll find out what's really going on." She was as good as her word. 48 hours later, I was back in her office, and she had a thick folder waiting for me. "Chandler, your mother is a victim," Sharon said, "not a villain." She opened the folder and started laying out documents. "Patricia has been showing signs of cognitive decline for over a year. Look at her bank records. These aren't the patterns of someone making rational financial decisions. Large purchases of items she doesn't need. Subscriptions to services she never uses. Multiple charges from the same vendors within days of each other, like she's forgetting she already bought something." I leaned forward, studying the records. Sharon was right. There were duplicate purchases, strange spending patterns, things that didn't make sense. "Now look at these transfers," Sharon continued. "Over the past 14 months, $47,000 has been moved out of her accounts in small increments. All of it going to an account controlled by Derek." "Derek? How?" "He's been systematically draining her savings by convincing her she needs to invest in various schemes. Real estate opportunities that don't exist. Business ventures that never materialize. He's preying on her confusion, her declining mental capacity." Sharon pulled out another document. "And this is the smoking gun. The fake bank statement showing you took $30,000? I traced the metadata. It was created on Derek's personal computer. I've got his IP address, his device information, everything. He fabricated that document to turn your family against you." I sat back, feeling like the world had tilted. So Mom really believes I stole from her because Derek convinced her I did? Exactly. And he's been feeding her false information about you for months. Look at these text messages I recovered from her phone records. Derek's been sending her articles about financial fraud, stories about children who steal from their elderly parents, anything to make her paranoid and suspicious of you. But why? What does he get out of this? Sharon's expression turned grim. "Your restaurant. If he destroys your reputation and your business, if he drives you into bankruptcy, he can potentially buy Harvest Table at a fraction of its value. He gets the business he always wanted, and he gets it cheap. Plus, he's been stealing from your mother. If you're discredited, and she's convinced you're the real thief, no one will investigate him." The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was horrifying. My mother has dementia? Early-stage vascular dementia, based on what I'm seeing. She needs a proper medical evaluation, But the signs are clear, and Derek has been exploiting it ruthlessly. I felt a wave of emotion. Anger at Derek. Guilt that I hadn't noticed Mom's decline. Sadness that she was going through this. Relief that she hadn't intentionally turned against me. I need to tell Emma, I said. She needs to know the truth. Be careful. You have a restraining order. You can't contact Patricia directly. Emma isn't covered by the restraining order. I can talk to her. I called Emma that afternoon. She didn't answer. I tried 3 more times over the next few hours. Finally, she sent a text. Stop calling me. I texted back. I have evidence that Mom is being exploited. Evidence that I never stole from her. Please, just meet me for 10 minutes. Look at the documents. Then you can decide what you believe. 20 minutes passed. Then, fine. Public place. Greg will be with me. We met at a park the next morning. It was cold. The kind of bitter November cold that cuts right through your jacket. Emma and Greg sat on one bench. I sat on another, maintaining the distance that felt symbolic of how far apart we'd become. I spread out the documents Sharon had given me. Bank records. The metadata analysis of the fake statement. The text messages between Derek and Patricia. The evidence of Derek's account receiving transfers from Mom's savings. Emma studied everything in silence. I watched her face change as she read. Disbelief. Then dawning horror. Then tears. She's sick? Emma's voice broke. Sharon thinks it's early-stage dementia. She needs a proper medical evaluation. But look at the patterns. The confused spending. The forgetfulness. The way Derek's been able to manipulate her. Greg put his arm around Emma. I'm sorry, man, he said to me. We should have listened to you. Emma was crying openly now. I said horrible things to you. We all did. And Mom, she's been going through this alone, being taken advantage of, and we didn't see it. We're going to fix this, I said. But I need your help. Derek has power of attorney over Mom's finances. He convinced her to sign papers making him her attorney. We need to get that revoked and get her proper care. What do we do? First, we confront Derek. Together, we show him we know what he's been doing, and we get Mom away from him. Then we get her evaluated by a doctor. Then we start legal proceedings to undo the damage. Emma wiped her eyes and nodded. Okay. When? Tonight. We go to Mom's house tonight. We arrived at Patricia's house at 7 in the evening. Emma had called ahead to say she was coming over, so Mom was expecting her. What she wasn't expecting was for Emma to bring me and Greg, along with Sharon and George. Derek's car was in the driveway. Of course it was. He'd been practically living at Mom's house, according to Sharon's research. Patricia opened the door, and her expression immediately changed when she saw me. What's he doing here? He has a restraining order. He can't be here. The restraining order specifies 300 feet from you personally, George said calmly. We're all going to stay out here on the front lawn. Patricia, we need to talk to Derek. Can you ask him to come outside? What's this about? Please, just get Derek. Patricia disappeared inside. A minute later, Derek appeared. He looked confident, smiling even, until he saw all of us standing there. Sharon, George, Emma, Greg, and me. His smile faltered. What's going on? Derek asked. I stepped forward. We know everything. We know you've been stealing from Patricia. We know you fabricated the bank statement to make it look like I took money. We know you paid Marcus to sabotage my restaurant. We know you've been exploiting my mother's cognitive decline for over a year. Derek's face went pale. That's insane. Patricia, tell them. But Patricia looked confused. I don't understand what's happening. Emma moved to her mother's side. Mom, Derek has been lying to you. Chandler never stole from you. Derek did. Sharon stepped forward and handed Derek a folder. This contains all the evidence. The bank records showing transfers to your account. The metadata proving you created the fake statement. The text messages showing how you manipulated Patricia. The pharmacy records showing you convinced her to sign legal documents while she was medicated. Derek opened the folder. I watched the color drain from his face as he flipped through the pages. You made one mistake, I said. When you faked that bank statement, you altered a digit in Mom's account number. A small error, Barely noticeable, but it proves the document is fraudulent. Plus, you left the metadata intact. We know exactly when you created it, what computer you used, everything. Derek looked around at all of us, trapped. For a moment, I thought he might try to bluff his way out, but then his expression changed. It went cold, calculating. "You think you're clever," he said, "but it doesn't matter. I have legal power of attorney over Patricia. I have her signature on a new will that leaves everything to me. You can't touch those documents. They're legitimate, signed before a notary. A notary with a history of complaints for notarizing questionable documents while signers were clearly impaired," Sharon said. "Plus, we have pharmacy records showing Patricia filled a prescription for anti-anxiety medication the same day she signed those papers. The will and power of attorney can be challenged and invalidated." Derek's jaw tightened. "Even if you get those thrown out, so what? Patricia still believes Chandler stole from her. She'll testify to that. She signed those papers because she wanted to protect herself from him. She signed them because you manipulated her while she was experiencing cognitive decline," George said. "That's elder abuse. That's fraud. That's a crime." Derek laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Good luck proving it. By the time this goes through the courts, I'll have moved the money offshore. You'll never see it again." "Actually," Sharon said, "you're not going anywhere." That's when the police cars pulled up. I'd called them before we arrived. Sharon had already been working with the district attorney's office, and they'd been building a case. The evidence was overwhelming. Derek tried to run. He actually turned and bolted toward the backyard. But the officers were ready for that. They caught him before he made it 10 feet, tackled him on the lawn, and cuffed him. Patricia stood in the doorway, watching in confusion. "I don't understand. What's happening? What did Derek do?" Emma hugged her. "Mom, let's go inside. I'll explain everything." As the police put Derek in the back of their car, he looked at me through the window. The expression on his face was pure hatred. I'd won this round. But as I stood there watching him being driven away, I knew this wasn't over. Derek had done too much damage. The restraining order was still in effect. My restaurant was still struggling. The fake reviews were still online. My reputation was still destroyed. I'd exposed the truth, but I still had to rebuild everything he'd torn down. The satisfaction of watching Derek get arrested lasted exactly 12 hours. By the next morning, reality set in. Exposing him was only the first step. The damage he'd done was still very real, and fixing it would be exponentially harder than uncovering it. The reinspection was scheduled for today. I'd spent every waking moment for the past 2 weeks ensuring Harvest Table was perfect. I'd installed security cameras covering every inch of the restaurant, the kitchen, the storage areas, the back doors, even the dumpster area outside. I'd changed all the locks. I'd personally verified every single detail of our food safety protocols. Jessica and I had gone through the entire restaurant with checklists at 6 this morning. Everything was spotless, organized, properly stored. We were ready. The health inspector arrived at 10. It was the same woman from before, the one who'd found the planted evidence. Her expression was neutral as she began her inspection. I followed her through the kitchen, watching as she checked temperatures, examined storage practices, reviewed our logs. Everything was perfect. She made notes, nodded occasionally, moved methodically through her checklist. Then she opened the walk-in freezer. I saw her freeze. Literally freeze in place, staring at something on the top shelf. "No. No. No. No." I looked past her shoulder and felt my stomach drop. There, sitting prominently on the top shelf, was a dead rat. A large, very dead rat, positioned deliberately where it couldn't be missed. But that wasn't all. Multiple containers of food had been opened and left uncovered. The contents were clearly spoiled, covered in mold. It looked like someone had deliberately contaminated everything. "This is sabotage," I said immediately. "Someone broke in and planted this. I have security cameras. Mr. Chandler, I need to complete my inspection. Look at the cameras right now, please. I can show you exactly when this happened." We went to my office. I pulled up the security footage on my computer. The inspector watched over my shoulder as I scrolled through the night's recordings. At 4:17 in the morning, The back door opened. I felt a spike of vindication. There. Proof of the break-in. Then my vindication turned to ashes. The figure that appeared on the camera was Marcus, my former sous chef, the one who'd confessed to sabotaging me at Patricia's instruction. He was using a key, walking confidently through the kitchen like he belonged there. The footage showed him entering the walk-in freezer with a bag. When he emerged 2 minutes later, the bag was empty. He left through the same door he'd entered. He has a copy of the old key, I said desperately. I changed the locks, but he must have made a copy before I fired him. The inspector's expression was sympathetic, but firm. I have to file my report based on what I find, not on what might have happened. I'm sorry, Mr. Chandler, but I'm shutting you down immediately pending a full investigation. You can appeal, but that process takes time. How long? Minimum 2 weeks. Possibly longer. She placed the official closure notice on the front door. That bright orange paper that tells everyone passing by that this restaurant failed its health inspection. The kiss of death for any food establishment. I stood there, staring at it, feeling numb. Jessica came to stand beside me. We'll fight this, Chandler. We'll get through it. But I could hear the doubt in her voice. She knew as well as I did what this meant. 2 weeks, minimum closure, possibly more. In the restaurant business, that's an eternity. Customers move on. Staff find other jobs. Momentum dies. My phone rang. It was George. Chandler, where are you? At the restaurant. We just failed the reinspection. We're shut down. You need to come to the police station. Now. What? Why? Derek filed a report. He's claiming you violated the restraining order. Says you showed up at Patricia's house this morning. There's a warrant out for your arrest. I leaned against the wall, feeling like the ground was disappearing beneath my feet. I was here all morning. I never left the restaurant. Can you prove it? Security footage. Jessica was with me. Other staff members. Bring all of it. Come to the station voluntarily. It'll look better than them picking you up. I gathered the security footage. Had Jessica write a statement confirming I'd been at the restaurant since 5:30 that morning, and drove to the police station. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. At the station, they took me into an interrogation room. A detective showed me a video on his laptop. It was doorbell camera footage from Patricia's house, time-stamped at 7:43 that morning. It showed a man matching my description. Same height, same build, wearing a jacket similar to one I owned. The figure approached the front door, knocked, then left when no one answered. That's not me, I said. I was at my restaurant. I have security footage proving it. The detective watched my footage. The timestamps matched. I was clearly at Harvest Table at 7:43. The person in Patricia's video could be someone else, I said. Same approximate height and build, but look closer. The gait is different. The posture is different. Derek must have hired someone to frame me. The detective studied both videos. Finally, he nodded. You're right. Different gait pattern. I'm not going to arrest you, but this complicates things. Someone's going to a lot of trouble to make you look bad. I know exactly who. Derek's in custody. He couldn't have done this personally. He has friends, connections. He obviously paid someone to do this, just like he paid Marcus to sabotage my restaurant. That's going to be hard to prove. When I left the police station, it was after 3 in the afternoon. I got in my car and just sat there. My restaurant was closed. My reputation was destroyed. I'd nearly been arrested based on fabricated evidence. Derek was in jail, but his network was still working to destroy me. I pulled out my phone and checked social media. Tyler's video of the Thanksgiving confrontation now had 37,000 views. The comments were still brutal. Someone had created a hashtag boycott Harvest Table. Local food bloggers were writing articles about the troubled restaurant with serious health code violations. My phone rang again. This time, it was my landlord. Chandler, we need to talk about your lease. My stomach clenched. What about it? I've been approached by an investment group interested in buying the building. Given the recent issues with your restaurant, the health code violations, the negative publicity, I'm seriously considering their offer. Who's the investment group? I'm not at liberty to say, but I knew. Of course I knew. Derek's investment group. The one he'd put together to steal my location. If I sell, the new owners would have the right to terminate your lease with 30 days' notice. I wanted to give you a heads up. You're selling my building out from under me. It's a business decision, Chandler. Nothing personal. He hung up. I sat in my car in the police station parking lot, feeling like I'd reached the absolute bottom. My business was closed. My family had been torn apart. My mother was sick. I'd been framed for crimes I didn't commit, and now I was about to lose my building. Derek had won. Even from jail, he'd won. That night, I couldn't go home. I went back to the closed restaurant and sat in the dark dining room, surrounded by empty tables. This was my dream. This space, this concept, this vision of creating something meaningful. I'd worked 10 years as a sous chef, saving every penny, learning every aspect of the business, preparing for this moment. I'd opened 8 months ago to rave reviews. People loved Harvest Table. They loved the food, the atmosphere, the care we put into every detail. And now, it was over. I pulled out all the documents Sharon had given me. The bank records, the evidence of Derek's fraud, the proof of Patricia's cognitive decline. I spread them across a table and studied them under the dim light from my phone. There had to be something, some leverage, some way to fight back. Then I saw it. A small detail I'd missed before. When Derek had fabricated the fake bank statement showing my supposed theft, he'd made that one-digit error in Patricia's account number. Sharon had caught that. But looking at it now, I realized something else. The account number he'd accidentally used instead? It was his own account number, with one digit changed. He'd been looking at his own account when he created the fake document, and he'd accidentally transposed a digit from his own number. It was a small thing, but it was proof of his deliberate fraud in a way that couldn't be disputed. I kept reading. The text messages between Derek and Patricia, the pattern of manipulation. Then I found something else in the pharmacy records. Patricia had filled a prescription for anti-anxiety medication the day she signed the power of attorney documents, yes. But she'd filled another prescription 3 days before that, a strong sedative, and Derek had picked it up for her at the pharmacy. If Derek had been giving Patricia sedatives, if he'd deliberately impaired her before having her sign documents, that was criminal. I pulled up the notary records. The woman who'd notarized Patricia's signatures had 7 complaints in the past 3 years. But none of them had resulted in license revocation because there hadn't been enough evidence. Maybe, with everything we had, there was enough evidence now. Finally, I looked at the investment group trying to buy my building. Sharon had researched them. The main investor was a man named Craig, someone Derek had gone to culinary school with. They were friends, business partners in other ventures. If Derek couldn't complete his purchase because he was in jail and his assets were frozen, Craig couldn't buy the building either. They didn't have the full financing. They'd been counting on using Patricia's money, the money Derek had stolen. If the power of attorney and will were invalidated, if Patricia's stolen money was returned to her account, Derek's financing collapsed. The building sale fell through. I kept my location. All the pieces were there. I just needed to execute perfectly. I called Sharon. It was after midnight, but she answered on the second ring. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "And I need it done fast." Sharon worked fast. By the next morning, she'd compiled everything into a comprehensive package and delivered it directly to the district attorney handling Derek's case. But she'd done something more. She'd also sent copies to the State Medical Board, the Notary Licensing Board, and Adult Protective Services. The district attorney agreed to fast-track the investigation based on the severity of the evidence. Adult Protective Services immediately opened a case on Patricia. The notary who'd witnessed the questionable documents was suspended pending review. But I still needed to move faster than the legal system. I needed my family to understand what had happened, and I needed it documented in a way that would flip the public narrative. That's where Tyler came in. I'd been furious with Tyler for posting that edited video. But Emma told me he'd been sick with guilt ever since learning the truth. He'd taken down the original video, but the damage was done. It was still circulating, still being shared. "He wants to make it right," Emma said when she called me. "He feels horrible. Tell him I have an idea. Tyler came to meet me at a coffee shop. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking slightly as he held his cup. "I'm so sorry, Chandler. I should have listened to you. I should have questioned what Mom was saying. You were manipulated. We all were. But now I need your help." I explained my plan. Tyler's eyes widened as I talked. "You want to film the whole thing?" "Yes. Every second. And then I want you to post it with a full explanation. The real story, not Derek's version. You have 37,000 people who watched that first video. They need to see the truth. Won't that make things worse for Mom? If people know she has dementia, we'll be honest about it. We'll explain that she was being exploited, that she's a victim. But people need to understand what really happened. For Mom's protection, for Mina, for everyone Derek might target next." Tyler nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. When?" "Tomorrow. I'm organizing a family meeting. Neutral location, community center. I've invited Mom, you, Emma, Greg, and George will be there as her lawyer. Sharon will present all the evidence. Derek obviously won't be there since he's in custody, but his lawyer will be. We're going to put everything on the record. And you want me to film it?" "With everyone's consent except Derek's lawyer, who can leave if he objects. But I'm betting he won't. He'll want to see what we have." The next day, we gathered in a private room at the community center. Patricia looked confused when she arrived, Emma holding her arm gently. She saw me, and her expression clouded. "Chandler's not supposed to be here," she said uncertainly. "Mom, he is. The restraining order was based on lies. We're going to explain everything." Derek's lawyer was a sharp-dressed man named Richard, who looked skeptical about the whole proceeding. He didn't object to Tyler filming, which told me he was curious about what we knew. Sharon began presenting the evidence. She laid it out methodically, piece by piece. The bank records showing no transfer to me but clear transfers to Derek. The metadata proving Derek fabricated the bank statement. The text messages showing his manipulation. The pharmacy records showing Patricia's medication. The pattern of Derek's theft over 14 months. I watched Patricia's face as Sharon talked. Confusion gave way to concentration. Concentration gave way to understanding. Understanding gave way to horror. "I signed papers?" Patricia asked. "Giving Derek control of my money?" "Yes," Sharon said gently. "You were manipulated into doing it. You're not at fault here, Patricia. You were the victim of financial exploitation. But I thought Chandler stole from me. I was so sure." "That's what Derek wanted you to believe," Emma said, holding her mother's hand. George stepped in. "Patricia, with your permission, we'd like you to undergo a medical evaluation. We believe you may be experiencing early-stage dementia. There are treatments that can help, medications that can slow the progression, but you need proper care." Patricia looked at me, and for the first time in months I saw my real mother in her eyes. Not the cold stranger who'd screamed at me, but the woman who'd raised me. "I haven't felt like myself," she said quietly. "I forget things. I get confused. I thought I was just getting old." "You're not just getting old," I said. "You're sick. But we're going to help you." Richard, Derek's lawyer, cleared his throat. "My client maintains his innocence." Sharon turned to him. "Your client created a fraudulent bank statement to frame an innocent man. He systematically stole $63,000 from an elderly woman with cognitive impairment. He paid someone to sabotage a business. He convinced that same elderly woman to sign over power of attorney while she was medicated. The evidence is overwhelming. That's for a court to decide." "Yes, it is. And when it does, your client is looking at multiple felony counts: elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. That's serious prison time." Richard's confidence wavered slightly. Sharon continued. "There's also the matter of Marcus, the sous chef who sabotaged Harvest Table. He's willing to testify against Derek in exchange for a reduced sentence. And Craig, the investor in Derek's building purchase scheme? He's facing his own charges for conspiracy. When people start cooperating to save themselves, Derek's going to have no one left on his side." The meeting lasted 3 hours. By the end, Patricia had agreed to a medical evaluation. She'd also agreed, with George's help, to file paperwork immediately revoking the power of attorney and contesting the will. Richard left, looking shaken. Tyler had filmed everything. That night, he edited it into a comprehensive video with context, explanations, and the full story. He posted it with a long caption explaining what had happened, apologizing for the misleading first video, and asking people to support Harvest Table during the reopening. The video went viral. Not 12,000 views this time. 300,000 views in 2 days. The narrative flipped overnight. Comments flooded in supporting me, condemning Derek, expressing sympathy for Patricia. Local news stations picked up the story. Food bloggers who'd written negative pieces wrote new ones praising my perseverance. The hashtag changed from boycott Harvest Table to support Harvest Table. The community response was overwhelming. Someone started a GoFundMe to help with legal fees and reopening costs. It raised $41,000 in 1 week. People I'd never met sent messages of encouragement. Regular customers reached out asking when we'd reopen. The health department, seeing the evidence of deliberate sabotage, and with Marcus's confession on record, conducted a new inspection with me present the entire time. We passed with flying colors. The closure notice came down, replaced by an A-grade health certificate. Patricia underwent a full neurological evaluation. The diagnosis was vascular dementia, early stage. The doctor prescribed medication and recommended lifestyle changes. Emma moved Patricia into her home, ensuring she had constant supervision and support. With proper treatment and care, Patricia stabilized. The confusion lessened. She became more like herself again, and she apologized to me. A real apology, tears streaming down her face, saying she was so sorry she'd believed Derek's lies, sorry she'd hurt me, sorry she'd tried to destroy what I'd built. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I should have said that when you opened the restaurant. I should have supported your dream. I'm sorry I didn't." Derek's case moved through the system. Marcus testified against him. Craig, facing his own legal troubles, provided evidence in exchange for a plea deal. The case was airtight. Derek was convicted on multiple counts: elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy, financial exploitation. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. The landlord, embarrassed by his near mistake and impressed by the community support, offered me a new 10-year lease at favorable terms. The investment group's offer had fallen apart when Derek's financing disappeared. But the biggest surprise came from Craig's investors. They'd had no knowledge of Derek's criminal activities. They genuinely wanted to invest in a successful restaurant. Once they saw what Harvest Table actually was, once they understood the situation, they approached me directly. "We're still interested in funding a restaurant expansion," the lead investor said. "But with you, not Derek. What you've built is exactly the kind of business we want to support." They offered me capital. Real capital, enough to not just reopen but to expand. I could open a second location, hire more staff, scale the concept I'd worked so hard to perfect. 3 months after the Thanksgiving that nearly destroyed my life, Harvest Table reopened. The community showed up in force. We had a waiting list of reservations stretching 6 weeks out. The dining room was full, every single night. I used the investment to open a second location 6 months later. This one was bigger, with a private dining room perfect for events, and I designated one Sunday evening per month as family night. On those evenings, I closed the restaurant to the public and invited my family for a private dinner. Patricia came to every single one. With her medication and Emma's care, she was present in a way she hadn't been in years. She sat at the head of the table, lucid and engaged, participating in conversations, laughing at jokes, being the mother I'd always known. On the first Thanksgiving after everything, I hosted the entire family at Harvest Table. 23 people total. Emma and Greg, Tyler and his girlfriend, cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone who'd been at that disastrous confrontation a year earlier. The restaurant was closed for the holiday, decorated with fall colors and candles. The kitchen staff and I prepared a feast: roasted turkey, braised short ribs, maple-glazed vegetables, fresh rolls, 3 kinds of pie. Before we ate, Patricia stood up. She was holding a glass of wine, her hand steady. The room went quiet. "I want to make a toast," she said, "to my son, Chandler. A year ago, I accused him of terrible things. I believed lies. I tried to destroy what he'd built. I failed him as a mother." "Mom," I started to say, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish. Chandler, you fought for the truth when everyone else believed lies. You protected me from someone who was hurting me, even while I was trying to hurt you. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real integrity looks like. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I caused you pain. But mostly, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the man you are, the business you've built, the way you handled everything with dignity and grace. You're a better person than I deserve." She raised her glass. To Chandler. Everyone raised their glasses. To Chandler. I felt tears on my cheeks. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. After dinner, after everyone had eaten too much pie, and the conversations had dissolved into comfortable chatter, I stood on the restaurant's back deck and looked out at the city lights. Tyler joined me. "I keep thinking about that group text," he said. "The one where Mom said you weren't invited to Thanksgiving. If I could go back and change one thing, it would be that. I would have questioned it right away, instead of just accepting it." "You can't change the past," I said. "None of us can. But we learned from it." "What did you learn?" I thought about that for a long moment. I learned that the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can hurt you the most, sometimes without meaning to. But I also learned that real family are the ones who stand by you when the truth matters. Emma came back to my side. "You helped me expose Derek. Mom was sick, but she came back to herself. That's family." I paused, watching the lights. I also learned that success isn't just about building a business. It's about protecting the people you love and fighting for what's right, even when it costs you everything. Derek tried to take my dream from me. He tried to steal my reputation, my family, my future. And for a while it looked like he'd succeed. But you didn't let him. No, I didn't. Because that Thanksgiving, when I wasn't invited, when I got that text saying I wasn't welcome, something in me refused to accept it. I knew something was wrong. I knew I hadn't done what they were accusing me of. And I decided right then that I was going to fight. Not just for my restaurant, but for the truth. Tyler was quiet for a moment. "You saved Mom, you know. If you hadn't figured out what Derek was doing, if you hadn't exposed him, who knows what would have happened to her. We all saved her. Together." Inside, I could hear laughter. Patricia was telling a story, something about my childhood, and everyone was laughing. It was the sound of family. Real family, healed family. That Thanksgiving when I wasn't invited was the beginning of the worst period of my life. But it was also the moment I learned what I was truly capable of. I didn't just survive. I uncovered the real criminal, saved my family, and built something even better than before. Derek thought he could destroy me. He thought he could take everything. But he was wrong. I took everything back. And more. Now, over a year later, Harvest Table is thriving. We've got 2 locations, a loyal customer base, and a reputation for excellence that Derek could never have built. Patricia is healthy and happy, living with Emma, attending family dinners, being part of our lives again. Tyler has become one of my biggest supporters, using his social media skills to promote the restaurant legitimately. Emma and I are closer than we've ever been. And Derek? He's in prison, exactly where he belongs, paying for what he tried to do to my family. Sometimes I think about that group text, that moment when everything fell apart. If it hadn't happened, would I have discovered what Derek was doing to Mom? Would I have learned how strong I really am? Would I have appreciated my family the way I do now? Probably not. So, in a strange way, I'm grateful. Not for the pain, not for the betrayal, but for what it taught me. That when everything is taken from you, when you're at your lowest point, when everyone believes the worst about you, you have 2 choices: give up or fight back. I chose to fight, and I won. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to destroy what you built? Where people you trusted turned against you based on lies? How did you handle it? Did you fight back? Or did you walk away? Leave a comment below and share your story. I'd love to hear how you dealt with betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that it's possible to overcome even the worst situations, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about resilience, family, and fighting for what's right. And share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's going through their own battle right now and needs to know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this journey. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you find the strength to fight for your truth. Because you deserve it. Your dreams deserve protection. Your family deserves honesty. And the people who try to tear you down, they don't get to win. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and never stop fighting for what matters.